Good morning, my friends. Happy Easter. I have no idea how long this will be. I have been, of course, giving some thought to what I would want to try and say this morning, and it's been rather interesting as I've let the week develop and found the particular things that I wanted to speak to on the days that I did these talks this Holy Week. I gave no thought to Easter Sunday morning. I knew it would happen as it would happen, and it certainly has. And as I was thinking about what I was going to say today, I thought, oh my God, Michael, if you're sure that you're just going to blow their minds, you're just going to screw with their heads. So that being said, you might just want to turn this video off now. Partly because there are so many things that one can say about Easter Sunday and the impact that it has had. I mean, you can take Easter Sunday at its most banal, I mean, absolutely banal, which has to do with the changing of the seasons, winter into spring, despair into hope, cold into warm, right? All this stuff that preachers have been doing since forever. That's its most banal, really, It has been turned into the, of course, in the Protestant tradition, a large part of the Catholic tradition, into the vindication of this sacrifice of Jesus, but sacrifice misunderstood, of course. And so God's wrath is justified at Calvary just as much as we're justified. And it's a terrible way to approach Easter. And then, of course, you got all the debates and modernity, and the division between natural, supernatural, all these kinds of things that they're fundamentally Platonic, people, to begin with. First of all, they're Zoroastrian. Dualism, dualistic thinking. You got to get the whole thing out of your head. Just the whole thing. Everything is real. Everything is real. Everything is real. Even what's in here in these neural pathways that you've created, it's your reality. When you go, well, what's the connection between my reality, small r, and reality, capital R? Do you see where I'm going with this? All these debates have influenced the preaching of Easter Sunday morning into two things. One, hyper-apologetics on the conservative side. God knows how many sermons we've all heard trying to prove the resurrection is a historical fact. It's a historical fact. And these very same people ignore the historical fact that Jesus dies a day early in the Gospel of John. But nevertheless, they use apologetics when it suits them. So here they just turn Easter into this dry, dusty lesson. And then, of course, the response to that from the liberal Christians in the 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st centuries, it's a spiritual resurrection. Our friend Marcus Borg, our dear friend Marcus Borg, loved Marcus, loved him. He was a very great man. He was a good scholar. He's a very great man. Listen to me, I sound like Donald Trump. He was a good scholar. He was a good man. Walter would share stories with me about his friendship with Marcus. Walter Wink would share stories with me about his friendship with Marcus and what it meant as they traveled through the Jesus Seminar. Walter's take on the Jesus Seminar is similar in many ways to Rene Girard's. So that has nothing to do with anything. The thing is, Marcus believes in the spiritual resurrection of Jesus. It was a spiritual resurrection. It wasn't fleshly. It wasn't, this worldly. It was spiritual resurrection. Okay, super. We have a docetic Jesus in the resurrection. Wonderful. Boy, that's helpful, isn't it? A Jesus who isn't like us. That's good. That's real helpful. There's no hope. What about quarks? What about muons and gluons? What about dark matter? Does any of that get redeemed by a docetic Jesus? A spiritual resurrection? No. Neither do cells or molecules. The universe isn't redeemed with a spiritual resurrection. So Easter's become, for a lot of folks, a kind of a melancholy, nostalgic day, because we all remember the time when we were celebrating Easter with joy, loving Jesus, connecting with Jesus. I mean, it was like he's risen. We've many of us have had those powerful worship experiences in the church, where on Easter Sunday we actually believe Jesus, the risen Jesus, was present. We really did. And then we look back and we go, oh gosh, group projection. Oh gosh, mimesis. Oh gosh. And none of it was real. For those of you who have participated in the charismatic tradition, listen very carefully to what I'm going to say. All of your experiences were real. Here's the problem. The charismatic tradition gives you the wrong Jesus. It gives you a sacrificial Jesus and a sacrificial God and a sacrificial hermeneutic. And they tell you that's the Jesus whose voice you listen to. But when you discover, the Bible isn't in error, and there's questions about penal substitutions, question about hell, question about this, when you discover all that, you realize Jesus isn't what the people said he is. Then you go out and you start to do a little reading in the historical Jesus stuff, and you realize, wow, Jesus is really different, and people really don't understand, blah, 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 and you do all that. That's healthy. It's purifying. It's a purification process to do that. The fact is, you heard Jesus' voice, the living Lord Jesus, the Jesus who rose from the dead in the flesh, the eschatological flesh, eschatological reality, eschatological quantum physics, or whatever kind of physics is happening there, because it's certainly able to transcend this physics and walk through walls and appear instantly at will. Poof. Whatever physics is there comes into this physics. You've experienced that in the charismatic church. See, the charismatics are paying attention to these kinds of texts. My sheep hear my voice. And then we because I've been in and out of the charismatic tradition, bits and pieces, and certainly know enough about it to be able to say this. They take the phrase, my sheep hear my voice, and they go on this massive experiential quest for hearing God. And then all the nonsense that comes out of that. And that's because the only God they're listening to is the God of Christian religion, the sacrificial God. Their Jesus is sacrificial. They're taking the revelation and the religion that's in the Bible, and it's mixed. And it's still mixed in their thinking. They have not yet learned to see just the revelation. It's all mixed in with that religion. But that doesn't mean they're not saying something and seeing something important that scared the bejesus out of the Protestant Orthodox, the Reformed tradition, and everyone else who wants to locate God's voice in the Bible, in the text, in a theory of the text, in a hermeneutic, actually. And you can't defend that. You know that now. But that doesn't mean that the living Lord Jesus doesn't speak, and that you weren't hearing his voice, or that you can't hear his voice today. So I want to invite you this Easter Sunday, wherever you're at in your journey with Jesus, to know that the living Lord Jesus does speak to you, and you can hear his voice. You can do this only through a process of purification, intellectually, psychologically, spiritually. That's why I am so grateful to have learned grandfather's uh, medicine ways. When I teach this, as some of you know in the Love Heretic group and elsewhere, I point out it purifies everything. It doesn't matter whether you're Christian, Wiccan, Jewish, Buddhist, Muslim, doesn't matter. You can practice this particular path of grandfather. It purifies those things. Well, this is exactly what Easter Sunday invites us to continue to journey into, is this purification process where we actually do hear the voice of Jesus. Now, I would like to share with you a personal experience, a personal story. So it's part of my testimony today on Easter Sunday. But in Easter Sunday is about testifying. It was perhaps a little over a year ago, and I had taken a follow-up to the philosophy classes I did at Tracker School. And this was called Temples of the Soul. And I've talked about this class in other places on this page and its impact on me. But one of the things, in addition to learning about the energy and the spirit world, the void, the creator out this way, in the Temples of the Soul, you move down through these temples. Doesn't mean like buildings. Grandfather talked about the temples of creation. Okay, so that's the kind of temples you need to think of as just beautiful Yosemite as you're driving, coming in. That's a temple. You know what I mean? You go through the temples of the soul, and the temples have keepers. Um, the Western tradition calls them angels. The Native Americans call them keepers. Um, it doesn't really matter what they are, really. It's how they function that's important. But at the bottom is the temple of the creator and the creation, where they meet and they touch. And there's a keeper there. Happy Easter. There's a keeper there in all of us. Light, love, from within and from without. You get it? Have courage. Have faith. If Jesus feels like a stranger to you, he is. He is to me too. Every day. Every day I look and I say, Jesus, if you get any more beautiful, I don't know if I can take it. And the more I see of you, the more beautiful you get, the more I meditate, think, study, pray, read, talk, engage. You get more beautiful. And then you're getting so beautiful that it's hurting my eyes. He comes as a stranger in the garden to Mary of Magdala, or at least she perceives him to be such. He walks with some disciples of his on a journey, kilometer after kilometer, talking Bible and his death. They don't know who they're talking with. He comes into the upper room and they panic. They've seen a ghost. The risen Christ will not be known until we are raised from the dead with him in his kingdom. But as he appears to us, as he comes to us, it's in this strange form. And then it's only later we realize that was Jesus. You see? And some folks, he has to shine a bright light and knock them right off their horse. The Lord is good, my friends. Easter has many multiple faceted meanings within a Christian theological framework. But its most important meaning is that we are made alive as He is made alive. Death has no hold on you. None. Not even the event in your life that you and others will call your dying. It's just a passage. There is no death for you. You will continue as He did, as Himself, the Son of the Abba, the revealer of the Papa. Yeah. Happy Easter.